are bold, you are fearless, you are radiant. It's time to unlock the diamond from within. BFF, we rise above, stronger together, we shine with love. Faith unshaken, hearts on fire, fearless souls, we're reaching high.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the BFF Empowerment Podcast. Please excuse the voice. So today on our Woman on the Rise segment of the BFF Empowerment Podcast, we have Miss Melissa Hefner. Miss Melissa is an author, a public speaker. She's also a therapist in Oklahoma, and she is the host of the podcast Emotionally Unavailable. So, welcome and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
All right. So, can you just tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah. So I got my master's in 2007, but was primarily a hospice social worker and then jumped ship after 10 years I still to this day remain very, very, very part-time employed doing bereavement work for the hospice, but
Hmm.
I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna try to be a teacher," because I had a kid that struggled in school, and I don't know, you know how it is, you think you're gonna save the world, so I tried that, it didn't work
Yes.
very well, and so I moved into school counseling, I did that, and then I just kinda reached burnout, and it wasn't necessarily that job, but it was the workplace that I was in, and just that field, um it really asks you to do a lot of self-sacrificing, and I had done enough of that. So I just wasn't thriving in education, and I had a really big mental health crisis. And honestly, it was just years and years of trying to manage CPTSD from a crazy childhood, but
Hmm.
not necessarily we did not have the language or vocabulary that we have now even 10 years ago.
Exact.
So I just kind of had to learn some of that stuff. But I've kind of just spent this last year going, okay, like I want to have a life I'm in love with every day. What does that need to look like? So I've just moved things into places. I started a little private practice as a therapist. I started a podcast. My 1 year anniversary was yesterday for that.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And yeah, I'm just kind of on a mission to change the world, starting with my own.
Oh, great, great. So, my first question is you mentioned, what is it, CTPS? What was it? C.
CPTSD.
Okay, what exactly is that?
It is complex post-traumatic stress disorder where PTSD would be more of like a short-term trauma environment. That's why a
Mhm.
lot of like the vets get labeled with that because it was from like their combat tour or
Mhm.
whatever. But complex is when you like lived in a very traumatic environment for a prolonged amount of
Oh,
time.
that actually sounds like my life.
Mhm.
I dealt with a lot of childhood abuse, and that's actually how I became disabled,
Mhm.
from the childhood abuse. So yeah,
Yeah.
that definitely sounds. And then even as an adult, I went through other traumas as well,
Uh-huh.
of abuse. So yeah, I've never heard of that phrase, but yeah, that's. I'm pretty sure it fits a lot of people.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. And again, like you're right, that phrase hasn't been around that long, considering how many of us are walking around experiencing it.
Hmm. So tell me a little bit about your podcast. What exactly is Emotionally Unavailable about?
Well, honestly, it started as a way to teach people about becoming more emotionally available and how to be vulnerable and have intimacy within your relationships, because I discovered myself to be very emotionally unavailable. And so it was just going to be catchy, because I thought it was hilarious. But really the show has evolved so much, because in the beginning I was afraid to go a little too deep or get too serious. And
Mhm.
that's who I am as a person. So I don't know how I ever thought I was going to avoid that. But I don't love surface conversations. I like to talk about real stuff. So,
Yes.
asking me about the weather will get on my last nerve. But the show has really evolved, because I talk to entrepreneurs, I talk to all kinds of people, but what I'm getting down, like, to the nitty gritty with any guest, is like, tell me your story. How did you overcome? What are you
Mhm.
doing right now? What are your biggest struggles? Because I think the thing that we all have to come to terms with is there's never this destination point where we're going to get there and never do something again, or be
Mhm.
perfect, or whatever the thing is that we're telling ourselves. And, it's just about, like I said, building a life that you're in love with, learning to be present and grateful in your, every moment. Even when you're not grateful, forgiving yourself for that. And I really just, as a therapist, I teach people how to cultivate self love. And we're just having
Mhm.
conversations around all those things.
Oh yeah, definitely. Sounds interesting. So you experienced some trauma as a child. Do you mind sharing?
Sure, yeah. So my parents were both addicts, and we did a lot of back and forth, first between my parents, both of them, and my grandparents. Then really my dad kind of quit trying to regain guardianship, because he kind of just knew he didn't have it.
Mhm.
My mom tried a lot longer, but finally gave guardianship to my grandma permanently when I was 8 years old. But then my grandpa left us when I was like 11, and we were able to get into a private foster care agency to do kinship foster care. And so
Mhm.
that's what we did. We lived with her. My parents were always around. I feel fortunate that they didn't just like completely abandon us. I mean, they did, but they were in and out. And like my dad, we always knew where he was, but my mom
Mhm.
was kind of a wanderer. And they just had very different addictions. Like, even though they did a lot of the same stuff, they were numbing different things, if that makes
Yes.
sense. And they
Mhm.
just behaved differently. My mom was a lot more erratic. My dad kind of stuck to opiates, so he was just kind of chill. But
Yes.
then my dad died of an overdose when I was 15, and then my mom died when I was 22 of complications related to hepatitis C and cirrhosis. But throughout all of that time, my mom wasn't someone who tried to shield us from her addiction in any way. So she was present, and she was crazy when she
Mhm.
was messed up. So there was so much abuse that took place, at times that we really weren't even supposed to be around her. But my grandma was one of those, well, that's your mom people.
Mhm.
And so,
Yes.
she just didn't understand what was safe for kids and what wasn't. And I feel like that's probably a really common predicament for people when you're trying to decide how much of a relationship to allow between a parent and a child. But that was one she really struggled with, and I think mostly because she leaned into her own shame, because my mom was her daughter and she very clearly created that mess. I mean, even though I'm not going to hold any parent accountable for their children's, lifestyle choices, I will say that environment that my mom and her siblings were raised in was very toxic. My grandma
Mhm.
was toxic, but really she was married to I mean, I would almost classify my grandpa as a sociopath. Like, he wasn't just a
Oh wow.
narcissist. He was crazy and did really torturous stuff to his own children. He didn't do any of that to us because my grandma didn't allow him to. She was a little more in her authority then. But I
Mhm.
mean, he blamed us for leaving, but he left her for his best friend's girlfriend, or
Oh
wife.
wow.
Wife, my bad. So yeah, just a really crazy childhood. And then I spent like, but I was one of those people who like at 18 was like, I mean, yeah, I had a lot of trouble, but like I don't think it's really affecting me because I was the
Mm-hmm.
good girl, like nobody had to worry about me. I was a rule follower. I was accomplishing. I was fueled by spite from all the statistics being thrown at me, very certain that I would be this thing, so I made sure to be the opposite. Like, you know
Exactly.
how that is where I just, I was going to make sure to do the exact opposite of anything I was
Opposite.
accused of or told I would become.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Wow.
that's kind of it.
Wow, that's definitely a lot. I feel like I've been through a lot, but yeah, you definitely have been through a lot. And so, with you being an author, have you written a book about what you've been through?
I did. Yeah, that was my first book. And actually, yesterday was the 4-year anniversary of that release. It was called Owning My Crazy, Learning to Overcome Trauma. But I mean, honestly, God, I knew so little about how to overcome trauma when I wrote that book. I even released a revamped version, mostly to release it to a wider market. But like, I added a little bit at the end. But even then, I was still working through stuff. Like, I would say stuff totally different now than I would have then, but I had always wanted to write about my story. And I
Mm-hmm.
just kind of got to a place where I felt like I was comfortable in saying that I really had learned how to survive the trauma. I wasn't great at it, but
Yes.
I was doing okay. And I was starting to have a real understanding of what my trauma was. The
Mm-hmm.
problem was is that I didn't understand what was being triggered when I lived in a state of being triggered. Like, I woke up in survival mode, I went to sleep in survival mode. I just constantly was running from danger. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was
Wow.
my first book.
Okay. So I actually just released my first nonfiction book about my trauma and the things that I went through. So I'm an author
Awesome.
as well.
Yay,
So
congrats.
I've actually published self-published 15 books to date. So
That's
that made number
awesome.
15, and so it's going really well. Like the response and everything is going really well. Um,
That's awesome.
so it's called Stolen Innocence: A Survivor's Journey to
Ooh,
Freedom.
I love that.
And it's basically my life from the age of 19 to like 25.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so my mom was very physically, emotionally, psychologically abusive to me from infancy until 15 when I became blind due to the abuse.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
so then, as an adult, well, to me, even though I was 19, I wasn't an adult. Like, I really knew nothing about adulthood, how to take care of myself, how to
Right,
fend for myself,
right.
because I had been living with my parents. And then now I'm disabled on top of that. So I ended up, my mom ended up sending me to live with my father, who I did not really know. I knew him by name mostly only.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so I was sexually abused by him from the
Oh my
moment I got
God.
there
I
for
will never
months.
understand a parent. Like, I'll never, this is the thing, is it doesn't like weird me out to hear about sexual abuse. I was sexually abused. I will just never understand. Like, it's never going to be something I can wrap my head around. I don't give a crap if he knew you as his daughter or not. Like, I just
hmm
don't understand that. So
And he
sorry to
actually treated
interrupt.
me more like I was his spouse than his daughter.
Yeah.
So that was even worse, feeling, and
Yeah.
like I dealt with it for 3 months before finally I was able to escape. But I only escaped because he pushed me through a glass window.
Holy God.
I mean,
Wow,
I took that
girl.
opportunity to, get out of the situation, but
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
3 months of torture, being beaten, being made to like just perform and do what he wanted. And then my dad was also an addict. So he tried
I
to
was
get
gonna
me hooked
ask
on
because it doesn't
drugs
seem like
and
somebody who's not messed up on drugs would do some of that. Was he doing
Mhm.
like meth, stuff like that?
So he was on crack.
Okay, okay.
Marijuana. He basically did whatever he could get his hands on, really.
Mm. To
And
oblivion, would you say? Like, was he
um
just completely out of it every
he
time he did
no, he was
anything?
actually a functioning addict. So he went to
Ugh,
work every day.
ugh, I just want to run over him with my car.
Oh, and it was like because I felt like I was this little lost girl, never knowing what love
Uh-huh.
was, and so I went from that situation to an abusive relationship,
Of
domestic
course. I mean, that's
violence.
all you ever knew. That's what was safe to
Yes.
you.
And I
Yeah.
was there for 5 years before I
Oh, honey.
finally
Yeah.
decided enough was enough. And so that's basically how I ended my book at 25 when I left that
Yeah.
situation. But of course, I endured more trauma after that.
Of course.
And so I'm currently
Yes.
working on that book, but I specifically wanted to write this book about this particular subject because it happens more often than people think, especially when it comes to
Absolutely.
incest.
Yeah.
And I
And good for
wanted
you for saying
to,
incest, for
yes,
being open about your experience, understanding it's not your shame to carry. Like, I am so proud of you for being so open.
I wasn't at first. Trust me, it took me a
Oh, sure.
long,
Nobody is. Nobody is. Yeah. Well,
like,
the
and
first
that's
time
why
you
when
tell
it first
someone and you get a
happened,
nasty reaction, it's real hard to tell more people.
yes. And that's why when it first happened, when the incident happened when he pushed me through the window, when the police asked me about was this the first time he had ever hurt me, I did lie
Of
because I was
course. You
ashamed.
were
And
scared.
I just
Yeah.
did not want to deal with it. Like I just wanted to be out of there. Like this is my opportunity to leave. I don't want to talk about nothing. No, I don't want to press any charges. I don't want to do any. I
Right.
just want to be out.
Well, and by then, I'm quite sure you had become accustomed to creating your own inner world that you could escape to. Like, if you were
Yes.
enduring all that abuse from your mom prior to that, I'm sure you were so good at
Writing.
disassociating and
Yes.
doing whatever you needed to do to get, like, out of the situation you were in and
hmm
feel safer.
So yeah, I wore a mask, like, and even when I was dealing with the domestic violence, people thought I was happy, but some people could tell, like I was very weak,
Uh-huh.
I was very shy, I really didn't talk unless it was really necessary because he wouldn't allow me to.
Right.
It
Ugh.
was always, just that control. I went to work and I came home. That's it. I had no
Yeah.
life.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you wanna talk about CPTSD, baby, for sure, for
Yes,
sure.
ma'am.
Yeah, for sure.
And I ended up in another, domestic violence relationship later in life, actually 3 years ago. And unfortunately, I married him, not
Yeah,
knowing. But the first moment he put his hands on me, that was it. It
yeah,
only
you were like,
took
"Oh,
one
been
time.
there,
I've already
huh?
been there, done that, and
If
I
you
am not
can do
going
it
through it
once, you
again.
will do it again."
Exactly.
Good for
So I was out
you.
of there. Like I was like, I'm not that little 19-year-old girl anymore that,
Exactly,
looking for love and don't
exactly.
know herself and
Uh-huh.
so I'm like, nope, that's all it took is one time and I was gone.
Oh, good for you.
So have you endured like abuse as an adult as well, or just was that just your childhood?
Just childhood. I've been really fortunate that because my abuse wound was so big, because for some reason I was the only child my mother physically abused. She
Mm-hmm.
really didn't even verbally abuse my brothers the way she did me. Um, I men with especially with deep voices,
Mm-hmm.
I could never be with somebody who like was abusive because the first time a male raised his voice to me, I would have just like shrank inside myself and run because
Mm-hmm.
I was terrified. I mean, truth be told, I have been more of the alpha and have been very verbally abusive in my relationships because I just did what I saw, like it's
Mm-hmm.
not like I was hitting people, but I was definitely mean.
Yes. And I've actually thought about it myself. Like sometimes I've kind of looked at my blindness as a gift
Mhm.
instead of a curse because I kind of think about all that I endured as a child, the type of person I would have grown up to be because of all
Mhm.
of it. And I said I don't think I would have liked the person that I would have become because I fought a lot in school. And that
Oh.
was my way of because I couldn't fight who
Yes.
was hurting me.
Right, you were
So
getting all that aggression out.
yes, and
Mhm.
I'm like, I just can only imagine. And I was, I was 15 years old when it finally stopped,
Right.
and that was only
Right.
because I went blind.
I mean, did she get in trouble for that? Or did you just
No,
never tell on her or
No.
Yeah,
I
okay.
never did, and I was actually surprised that the doctors never said anything.
Uh-huh.
Because my vision actually could have been saved if she had gotten
Ugh.
me help. So it happened in March of 2005. She didn't take me to the
Wow.
doctor until October of 2005.
Did
So
you just have like a
seven,
retinal detachment or what?
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Jesus.
And they told her, if she had gotten me help when it first happened, they could have saved my vision. They still performed surgery anyway to try to see if there's a way they could save, but it was too
Uh-huh.
late.
Wow.
And instead of her, like, oh man, like I done messed up or anything, oh no, she went straight down to Social Security. Yep, I need a check.
Yeah, she's like, well, we gotta get this
Like,
baby on disability. Yeah,
like with
yeah. Oh,
no
I know
head,
all
and I
about that.
never even knew about it until I was 19 years old. The
You're
whole
like,
time
what?
she
I
had
get a
been,
check? Huh.
I had never known.
Oh, I'm not surprised. There's
When I
lots of
asked
parents
her
like that.
about
My
it, she
God.
would lie and say no, she didn't get it. I didn't qualify. But then
Psh.
once she felt like she didn't need me anymore because the check was about to run out, that's when I
Uh-huh.
found out.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So it was just like, wow. So yeah, I do look at it as a blessing that, it saved me because I'm a mom now.
Yeah.
I have a 6-year-old son and I also have two
Oh,
bonus daughters. And I just could never see myself doing what was done to me to my children.
right.
Like there's
That's the
nothing they
part.
could do.
Exactly. And that was the thing is I didn't feel anger toward my parents until I became a parent, especially when I had a daughter because my sexual abuse happened because of my mom leaving us in places that leaving us home alone for however long, weeks while she was, running off doing whatever she was doing until someone realized we were home alone, or paying some teenager down the street to babysit us and then he's doing whatever to me. I
Hmm.
didn't feel mad about those things until I had a daughter. Yes, with a son, it bothered me a lot too. But when I had a daughter, I had never been triggered by anything. Then I have a daughter and I go to change her diaper or whatever. And I started being triggered a lot when the first few
Hmm.
years of her life was like, oh, like I had to ask my husband not to change her diaper on our bed
Hmm.
because I remembered whenever a sexual assault happened, it was the teenager that I was referencing, and he just kind of plopped me on, a bed that I shared with my mom, and I was
Hmm.
only like 6 years old. And when he would change my daughter on the bed or ask me to, it was way too triggering. Like I would have
Yeah.
flashbacks where that didn't happen about most things, and it didn't happen about that thing until I had her. So I was mad, like so mad because I'm like, how could you? I just couldn't. Like I could
Hmm.
never. I mean, I went the exact opposite. I was crazy town mama who was like, no, you ain't staying the night over. They got big brothers. Nope, you're not staying the night over there. Like even
Exactly.
to my boys, like, or like I don't know. Well, tell me about the parents. Oh, mama's single. Nope, because I don't know if she's vetting men before they come in her house. Like
Hmm.
I was like, no, I mean, they can come over here. I don't care. Like, I don't discriminate over who my kids are friends with, but I do discriminate over which houses they're staying the night in.
Exactly.
That oldest one never got to do a sleepover as like a young child, and the middle one only did with people that I knew really well and just like had to take a chance because I felt remorse over the older one. That youngest one, though, the girl, like very few places has she stayed the night ever. And she's almost 11. But I'm like crazy over it because I'm like, no, not on my watch. This is there are very few things I can do to protect you in this world, and I'm gonna do the things I can.
Exactly. So yeah, I'm definitely very, protective of my son and my bonus daughters because I'm like, people don't discriminate. They don't care if you're a boy, you're a
No.
girl. They don't care. Like, and it's my job to protect you from anybody. I don't care if they're related to you by blood. They're
Yep.
not. I don't care. Your friends,
Exactly.
mom, sister, brother. I don't
Uh-huh.
care.
I don't
Like,
trust anyone that we're related to any more than unreal. Like I just am like, hey, I've heard those stories too.
hmm.
Grandpa, uncle, whatever. Like,
Exactly.
of course, I don't suspect anyone would do that, but that's the thing. None of us do. Like, nobody
Mhm.
thinks somebody you trust is going to hurt you or someone you love, but they do it every day. And I was like, well, if we had such a good spidey sense over who was and wasn't going to hurt us, then a lot of kids in this world wouldn't be hurt. So I'm
Exactly.
not going to have the ego that says I know how to spot a child predator, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, I worried about that too with my dad because well, she wasn't his stepmom wasn't my stepmom because she wasn't married to him anymore, but she had a young child, and before I came around, like especially after he started doing what he was doing to me, and at the time she was only like 7. I
Oh
was worried about
gosh.
her, and I was like, I just did not trust him being alone with her because I was like, there was
Mhm.
nobody to protect me. So I
Right.
made it my business to make sure that I was there for her so that he would never have a chance to be alone with her.
Yeah, God, that's heavy for a kid to take on.
And because and come to find out, basically my dad did the same thing to my stepmom.
Oh, really?
He sexually abused her, all of that, and that was why they got divorced. But she still, for whatever reason, would not stop associating with him.
Wounded people do wounded stuff, I guess, right?
Hmm. Oh
Wow.
yeah. So with you being a public speaker, what topics do you speak on?
It kind of depends on the audience, but overall, I'm just helping people like learn how to experience feelings, how to
Mm-hmm.
not be as avoidant. I think as a society, we're very naturally avoidant of feeling, and I think that's just because it's human nature. Like, our brain isn't designed to feel; it's designed to keep us alive, which it does through
Mm-hmm.
catastrophic thinking and negativity bias and all the things. And we start to feel very powerless to our brains, and we believe our brains, and 99% of what your brain is feeding you is a lie to keep you safe. So I just really like, through my story, I really just share different aspects of my story and my learning and my growth and my evolution to get people to a place where they feel like they have clarity, hope, direction on how to build their life to be the one that they are in love with, and how to find peace.
Mm-hmm. Peace is definitely very important.
Mhm.
Because I'm also a motivational speaker too, and I haven't spoken in a while. I definitely
Uh-huh.
want to get back to it. Because yes, I've always shared my story on podcasts and interviews, radio, all of that. But I definitely want to get back into more of the public, going to different venues and things like that, speaking. Because I've always loved just speaking to children like in foster care and women in
Uh-huh.
domestic violence shelters and just sharing my story with them and letting them know that just from seeing what I went through and all that I've been able to accomplish despite it all, like just giving them that sense of hope and that sense of there is a purpose for my pain. Like, I'm not always
Absolutely.
going to hurt. Like, there's going to be something that comes out of this that's going to be good.
Absolutely. Yep, I can resonate with that for sure.
Okay, so is there anything else you would like to share?
Gosh, I would just say that healing is possible,
Mm-hmm.
and I like you saying purpose in pain, because I've said that forever. I
Mm-hmm.
really think that's what helped me survive childhood, is I just felt a sense of purpose for those things. Not now, I view some of those things differently, but as a child I just leaned in really hard to the fact that, like, I was experiencing things because I was going to be a helper and a healer. Like, I knew that as a child, and the way
Mm-hmm.
that that mission has evolved has been a really beautiful exploration for me. And this last year in particular, just learning to finally get in touch with myself, connect with myself, quiet all the noise that was just blocking everything, because it was, my brain was just running nonstop.
Mm-hmm.
um just this whole journey that I've been on for this last year has been really transformative. And so, yeah, like I said, I would just want people to know that healing is possible. And, I don't want to trigger anybody. And so if you're not at the place in your journey where you believe that things are happening for you and not to you, I can meet you in that place and understand that that is a step to take. And if you haven't taken that step yet because you haven't had that like aha epiphany where you're like, oh, this is happening for me, not to me, so that I can transmute what's happening and
Mhm.
turn that into power. But that is a step to take, and it is an epiphany, an aha moment, a shift in the way you think, and it happens through like surrender, and just kind
Mhm.
of understanding we don't get to control everything that's happening on this planet, but how can I control myself and build up my inner
Excuse me.
world to be resilient to the outer world. And so that's what I'm doing, is teaching people how to do that.
Mhm. And with dealing with your trauma, did you go to therapy or did you self-heal, or how did you come to terms to look at your situation from a more positive outlook, instead of, a lot of times when people go through trauma, instead of taking that trauma and making something positive out of it, they themselves either do what was done to them, or they become addicts, or,
Right.
alcoholics, become promiscuous, just do the complete opposite of getting better from what they went through.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so I did go to therapy for just a short time at 18, and then after that I didn't. I loved that therapist, but thought I was fine, and so didn't continue those services. When I was in the like darkest place in my life and in a mental health crisis, I certainly wanted to, but I didn't feel like a therapist could help me because I was like, I don't know that they're going to be able to tell me anything I don't already know, because I was so good at intellectualizing my experiences.
Mhm.
I thought I was self-aware. I thought I didn't know how much was out there that could help me. And a lady was on my podcast early on, like one of the first 10 episodes, and she worked for a guy named Troy Love in Arizona, and he does the Finding Peace method, and he wrote a book called the Finding Peace Workbook. And they go through, he outlines the steps and the processes in that method, and she practices the method as a therapist in Arizona. And so we were just kind of talking, and she told me about the book, and that was kind of the first step in really understanding what was happening, because it taught me what those narratives in my brain really were, and to learn to hear who was actually talking to me, because it wasn't me saying all those things to myself. It was just different, they call them shadows of shame, but it was just different
Mhm.
archetypes of shame popping up that have their own function to protect you. And I just had a lot of noise going on, and it helped me identify the noise, and then I could rid the noise because I knew what it was, but I didn't know prior to. So that was really a big step. And then everything from then has just been a ton of learning, expanding on the things I'm learning, meeting new people who teach me stuff,
Mhm.
and yeah, just kind of leaning on the resources that are out there.
Okay. And when you dealt with your mental health crisis, what was that like?
Well, I literally was just like melting down because I got to a place where I really believed my kids would be better off without me,
Mhm.
because I just felt like I was messing everything up. And because I couldn't be perfect, which is what I realize now, that I was just holding myself to some unreasonable standard,
Mhm.
I just thought they'd be better without me. And so when I realized, like, okay, I'm in a really bad place, I just kind of like, I knew I had to change some things up. So that is why I left my job and started like just trying to do entrepreneurship. And, because when you're doing a podcast and you're doing the public speaking and you don't have anyone to help you, like I'm doing it all on my own.
Mhm. Yep, same here.
Yeah, it's tough being a one-man show, because people are
It
like, "Why don't you do
is.
this? Why don't you do that?" And I'm like, "Do you want to send off the request for those things for me? Like, I would love to, but I don't have time to even ask people to like let me do that." You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
And yeah, and because of my story and just how I've learned how to live and how to, cope with and heal from all that I've been through, That is one of the reasons why I started this podcast with my best friend. Is because, that empowerment for women is just very near and dear to me, because I
Mm-hmm.
know as women we go through a lot more than
Yes.
most. And
Uh-huh.
if you don't have the right outlet, you don't have the right people to talk to, or you feel unheard, like it can cause you to, do things that are not aligning with your purpose.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that was really it. I found myself out of alignment in every area of my life. And I just started moving pieces to become in alignment.
Mm-hmm. All right. So we've gotten to the part where my favorite part of the show, where it's called What is She Thinking? And so what I'm
Okay.
going to do is I'm just going to give you about five phrases, and I want you to
Okay.
just to tell me the first thing that comes to your mind. Um,
Okay.
What is she thinking? What are her thoughts? Quick, fast, no blinking. What do you got?
all right. So first one is Christmas is.
Ooh. Pretty fun.
Okay. Um, I would watch that movie again, but
Oh gosh. All I can think is, but I fell asleep last time.
I don't like pickles or cucumbers, but I do like
Pickled okra.
pickled. Ew, that's
I do. I love it. But I like pickles and cucumbers too.
um, let's see. Cats are
Sweet.
sweet. Okay. Last one. I woke up this morning.
And wanted to go right back to sleep.
I
I sure did too.
like
I
it. I
wanted to.
like it. All right. Well, do you want to share your social media and where people can contact you, where they can purchase your books, and
Sure.
any of that?
Yeah, so the fastest way to get to anything is Instagram at Melissa.Hepner. My link tree has books, podcasts, like different places to listen to the podcast, any workshops I'm a part of that want to be a part of. You can also, like, if you just search my name on Amazon, all my books will come up. I've written some children's books too. I've got a
Me
journal on
too.
there. And then my website is empowered with melissahepner.org.
Okay. Well, do you want to take us out with a powerful words of encouragement, or just like a motivational quote?
Huh, let me think. I will just say this. Whoever's listening, you are already all the things that you are trying to become. If you can learn to use the word and understand that you are dark and light and you can't have one without the other, and it's all the best parts of you, even if it's the parts that you don't like, you can learn to make magic out of all of it.
I love it. I love it. I like that.
Thank
That is
you.
good. That is good. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in to another episode of the BFF Empowerment Podcast. And thank you for tuning in to the Women on the Rise segment of the BFF Empowerment Podcast. Be sure to like and follow, share the podcast. We are available on all major podcasting platforms. Don't forget to also follow us on social media on Facebook at BFF Empowerment Podcast. We're on Instagram at BFF Empowerment Podcast. We are on Threads as BFF Empowerment Podcast. And we're also now on YouTube as BFF Empowerment Podcast. And don't forget to also visit the website at bffempowermentpodcast.com. And thank you guys for listening. See you next time.